Welcome back on the Parisian Mall. Today we're going to talk about a topic that I know is one of the topics that creates the most confusion among us expats when we move to a different country, in this case France, which is how to file the tax return. Because most of all, when we move to a new country, we have to understand how it works in that country. And I'm speaking from my own experience. If filing the tax return already is not an easy thing in our own home country, doing it in a different country can be very much confusing and overwhelming. So as when I moved to Paris 3 years ago and found myself facing the tax return for the first time, I was so confused. I decided to record this video to explain to you how it works and how you have to file your tax return in France in order to bring you some clarity and help you understand step by step what you have to do. So without further ado, let's get into today's video. Okay, so first thing first, the tax return in France is called Déclaration des revenus, and here we go with the French pronunciation, but whatever. So basically, every year in France, the tax return period goes from April to June. Now, this year it opened on April the 10th, so starting from April the 10th, it's possible to file your tax return in France. But the important thing you have to keep in mind is that every year there are specific dates that you need to respect and by which you have to file your tax return. And these dates, I'm speaking plural because there are different deadlines depending not only if you file your tax return in a paper format or online, but also depending on your department of residence. Now, we're going to go into detail with everything, but this was just to let you know that considering that there are specific and strict deadlines every year that you have to respect for the tax return, my advice around April is always to go on the tax administration website in order to check what are the deadlines for that specific year. And this year, for 2025, the deadlines are May the 20th for paper tax returns and June the 5th for online tax returns. And if you're wondering what is the difference between the two, we're going to see it right away. Because one of the most important things you have to bear in mind when you move to France is that the very first tax return must be sent in a paper format. And the second important thing is that no one is going to knock on your door to tell you that it's time for you to file your tax return, because the very first one, it's up to you. You have to remember that you have to send it out. From the following year, so from the second year on, not only you will be allowed to file your tax return online, but you will also receive notifications that it's time for you to file your tax return. But not the first year. So the first year, you have to be absolutely 100% responsible for yourself. You have to place an alert on your calendar. You have to file your tax return and you have to send it to the tax administration in France. So this is the reason why I'm recording this video, to explain you step by step what you have to do. So for the very first tax return in France, what you need to do is simply to go on the tax administration website, which is impot.gouv.fr, but I'm writing it down here. And I'm also going to write it in the description of the video so you can just click and be directly connected to the website. So what you have to do is you have to download the specific form for the tax return. And the standard form is usually 2042, number 2042. Of course, based on your specific situation and category, there may be additional forms that you have to complete. So my advice is to check among the list of documents available and the list of forms available on the website which ones apply to your specific case. But the standard normal form for a tax return is usually number 2042. So what you need to do is just to download the form, fill it out in every part with all the data requested, and above all, of course, with the income that you earned for the year of reference, which is last year, 2024. So you have to insert the income that you earned throughout 2024. And then you have to send it via physical mail, so ordinary mail, at the Centre des Finances Publiques, so the different branches of the tax administration on the territory of your arrondissement, because of course there are different branches and you have to check which is the one assigned to the arrondissement where you live in. And again, this information can be easily found on the tax administration website, where you will find the whole list of Centre des Finances Publiques in Paris. And once you find the one, that applies to your arrondissement. You just need to write down the address, which will be the address you will write on the letter when you send out your tax return. And so, as I said before, for the paper tax returns, the deadline this year is May the 20th. So you have to send it within midnight of May the 20th. And once you send it out, you're good to go. Also because, yes, you have a deadline that you need to respect, but you have 3 years to edit it. So in case after sending it out, you realize that you made some mistakes, that you didn't add some income that you forgot about, or anything else it may be, just don't worry, because you will have 3 years to edit it. So yes, they give strict deadlines, but they allow you to edit your tax return in case you need to. So yeah, basically once you've sent it out, you're good to go. There's nothing else you need to do, but wait, because around September, usually, you will receive a letter from the tax administration, which will be called avis d'imposition. And in the avis d'imposition, you will find a lot of information that will be super useful for you. So first of all, in the avis d'imposition, you will receive your taxable income of reference, which is basically a recap of the data that you inserted in your tax return, and based on which the tax administration will have done their own calculations and will let you know if for the year of reference, so last year, you already paid all the taxes you needed to pay. Because, for example, if you are an employee, every month your employer withdraw directly from your payslip a percentage of the income tax. And so the tax administration will just let you know if you already paid everything you owed, or if you have to pay additional taxes that you didn't pay. And in that case, they will tell you the exact amount you need to pay, or if you paid more. And in that case, they will tell you how much they will reimburse you, and they will directly reimburse you on your bank account, which is very useful. And together with this information, in the avis d'imposition, you will also find your fiscal number, which is a super important information. So write it down somewhere safe so that you don't lose it, because your fiscal number will not only need it for every other tax return from the second year on, but you will also need it for every single communication with the tax administration from that moment on. So this is what will be included in your avis d'imposition for the very first time you send your tax return in France. Now, as said before, from the following year, you will be allowed to declare your income online, which is going to be super fast and super easy, because basically around April, when the tax return period opens, you will receive a letter from the tax administration where you will find the data to access online. Because you cannot create a personal area on the tax administration website without, like, freely. You need to wait until they send you your access data. So once you receive this communication with your online access data, you can then create a personal space on the tax administration website. And there, once inside, you will find your tax return pre-filled. So basically what happens is that for the very first tax return, you have to file it on your own because the tax administration does not have your data yet. But from the following year on, the tax administration will already pre-fill your tax return with all the data they have, and you will just need to check that all the data they inserted are correct. And above all, if you have additional streams of income that the tax administration is not aware of, for example, because you have streams of income coming from other countries, you will need to add them manually. So basically, you will just need to check that everything is okay. If you need to edit something, you can edit. If you need to add something, you can add it. And once your tax return is complete, you will just need to click confirm, and the tax return will be sent to the tax administration. And again, you will have, by the way, 3 years to edit it in case you realize you made any mistakes. So basically, from the second year on, it gets super easy. No paper, no physical mail. You can do everything online. Now, I wanted to add an information which could be useful to some of you, because as I said before, once you file your first tax return on paper, after a few months, you will receive at home a letter from the tax administration indicating what is your fiscal number, which in French is called numéro fiscal. But if for some reasons you need to receive the numéro fiscal before filing your first tax return, maybe because you want to have it before the tax return period starts, or because you need it for specific administrative procedures, or to receive any advantage, I don't know, any reason you may have to want to have a numéro fiscal before filing and sending your first tax return, there's a specific form on the tax administration website that you can fill in to just request a fiscal number, which is form 2043. I will link it to in the description below. And you will just need to fill it in all its parts and then send it via ordinary mail to the Centre de Finances Publiques of your arrondissement. So this is just if you need to ask for a fiscal number before allowing the tax administration to automatically create it after you file your first tax return. But if you don't, no worries, because once you file your first tax return, you will be automatically assigned a fiscal number. Now, I wanted to talk about a very confusing point, which often applies to us expats that move to a different country, which is what to do and how to declare income earned both in France and abroad. Because this happens a lot. I mean, for example, me, when I moved to France, I have been working for part of the year in Italy, and then I moved to France, and the rest of the year I worked in France. So for that fiscal year, I had income coming from Italy and from France to declare, and I didn't know where to declare it, how to declare it, if I had to declare both in both countries or not. So it was just all very confusing. So this is also the reason why I really want to tell you, for these kind of matters, which are very delicate and very important, seek advice from professionals. Like, filing a tax return is not something that you can take for granted. It's not something that you should approach lighthearted, because it can have consequences. If you make mistakes while filing your tax returns, it can have deep consequences on a fiscal and legal matter. So not only if you move to a different country like France and you are not sure of what you need to do, you should definitely seek advice from someone. But above all, if you have streams of income coming in from different countries, 100%, like, my advice really is to seek guidance from professionals in the field, like fiscal professionals, legal professionals, and make sure that they can support you in filing your tax return. This is super important, because you want to avoid risking making any mistakes that then could be bigger than actually asking for help before doing it, and allow people to help you along the way. So that being said, I'm just going to explain you on general terms how it works in France when you have to declare income coming also from other countries. So basically, everything is based on tax residency, based on French laws and regulations, specifically Article 4A of the Code Général des Impôts, which is the tax code. Basically, if you are considered a tax resident in France, so for French tax residents, you need to declare in your French tax return your global income, so the income that you earned both in France and abroad. Whereas for non-tax residents in France, so if you're not a tax resident in France, in the French tax return, you will only need to declare the income that you earned in France. And then for the income that you earned abroad, in the country where you are considered tax resident, you will need to declare based on the regulations and laws of that specific country. So I'm just going to give you an example. For Italy, how does it work? Exactly as France. So for Italy, it's the same. If you are considered a tax resident in Italy, it's in Italy that you have to declare your global income, and then in France, only the amount that you declare that you earned in France. Whereas if you are not a tax resident in Italy, you will need to declare in Italy only the amount you earned in Italy. So basically, this means that if you want to take as an example an Italian person that moves to France and has a double income coming in from France and from Italy, first of all, the first thing to understand is what is the country where you can be considered a tax resident. And once you have defined that, one of the two tax return will be the main tax return, which will be the tax return where you will need to declare your global income, so both the French and the Italian income. Whereas the country where you're non-resident, but still you earned income from, will be the country where you will need to file a tax return just for the amounts you earned from that country. Now, this rule doesn't apply to everybody, of course. I am giving you an example of how it works between France and Italy because they have similar regulations, but it doesn't mean that it works like that for everybody. For example, the US taxes their citizens on their global income. It doesn't matter where their tax residency is. So you always want to make sure how it works in your home country or the country where you are generating income. And also you need to understand how tax residency works in those specific countries. So what is the definition and what are the criteria to be considered tax residents in your home country or the country you have income coming from? Because for France, you can easily find the criteria to be considered a tax resident, again, on the Code Général des Impôts in Article 4B. I will link it here below. Generally speaking, the requirements to be considered a tax resident in France are that you need to live in France. So basically, your main residence must be in France. Your main center of personal and professional interests must be in France, and you have to have spent in France more than 183 days on the year. But you can find the whole list of criteria inside the Code Général des Impôts in order to understand if you can be considered for that specific fiscal year a tax resident in France. And in that case, in the French tax return, you will need to declare your worldwide income. So not only what you earn in France, but also what you earn abroad. But at the same time, if you have streams of income coming from other countries, you will need to check with each country what are the regulations in this matter. Whereas if you are not considered tax resident in France because you don't meet the requirements, or because you are considered tax resident in another country, in your French tax return, you will only need to declare the income that you earn in France. And then it will be up to you to understand how it works with the tax return that you need to file in your home country or in the other countries where you earn your income. So if you need to declare your global income, so also the French one, or just the income you earned in that country. And if you're panicking and are like, wait, hold on a minute, does this mean that I'm going to be taxed twice on the same income? So if I have to declare the same income on both tax returns, don't worry, because luckily France has so many treaties with multiple countries in order to avoid the double taxation. So you just need to check with your home country or the country where you earn income if they have a treaty with France in order to avoid double taxation, but 90% of the time they do, which means that you will not be taxed twice through different mechanisms, which for example involves even tax credits or different kind of ways that will allow you not to be taxed twice on the same income that has already been taxed in another country. So don't worry at all about that. By the way, as I know how hard it's been for me in the very beginning when I moved to France and I had no idea of how to file my first tax return, and I remember asking my colleagues in the office, they were all French colleagues, and I was like, what do I have to do for my first tax return? And they were absolutely not aware. They were like, oh, I don't know, because I've always done it through my friends, through my accountant, through my family members. So nobody actually was aware of how it truly works. And so I thought that it could be helpful to record this video to help you understand how it actually works to file your tax return in France. But again, these are just general information and guidelines. And for a more concrete and operational filing of your tax return, I really recommend to ask for help to professionals in the field, because they are there for that, to help you. That's their job, and they're there to help you and support you in this matter. So as always, I really hope this video was helpful for you. If it was, just click on the like button, but most importantly, subscribe to the channel so that you can always stay updated whenever I post a new video. And of course, if you have any question, if you have any doubt, if you need additional information, just leave them in the comments or send me a DM on Instagram, and see you in the next video.